Hey folks, thanks for tuning in again. Welcome back to LB Music. Today I want to show you two examples of drum recordings that were recorded just with two microphones. So the first example was recorded with a kick drum microphone and a snare microphone, so no room mics. And the second example was recorded with just a kick drum but no snare drum microphone. Instead of a snare drum microphone, it was recorded with overheads. And instead of using sample or replace the drums with samples, I wanted to show you what you can do to a live drum kit that was recorded with very minimum or with very few microphones. So let's step right in and see what we can do. Alright folks, so here you can see the drum example number 1, and underneath I have the drum example 2, and in the first example here I have just a kick microphone and a snare microphone track. And what I created here is a kind of fake drum room, because there is no room track or room microphones used. And on the second example I have a kick drum, so a focused kick drum microphone, and it was recorded with drum overheads. So let's listen now to the first example without any plug-ins, just with a limiter and no processing. Right, so pretty straightforward. And now let's look at my drum bus here, where all the other tracks are routed to. And on the first plug-in, or on the first slot, I have a NLS channel from Waves with the SSL channel, a little bit of drive. So let's engage that. And on the second slot here, I have the Kramer tape from Waves with 15 IPS, a little bit of wow and flutter, and noise all the way down. So let's engage those two, listen to that with and without. So now that's with. And without. Again with. So it kinda makes everything a little bit nicer. It kind of tames a little bit of the transients, which I suppose was the tape simulation here. And now let's head over to the kick drum. So let's solo that and listen to it. So a really hard beat on here. You can really hear the smack of the beater. And let's engage a little bit of compression. I use the CLA 76 here with a fast release and a slow attack. Ratio is 4:1. Let's engage it. So it really emphasizes this beat in here. Alright, so let's engage a EQ, and what I did here on the filter is I filtered out everything below 20 Hz. There's not really much information down there, and I also added a little bit of 60 Hz to get a little bit more bottom end of the kick. So let's listen to that without and then with. Alright, and now, last but not least, Saturation from Softtube. It's a free plugin. It's pretty decent. Dialed in just a little bit of saturation, so let's listen to that. Nice. Alright, so that's about the kick. Let's head over to the snare. And again, I have two more or less the same plugins as in the kick drum. Again, the compressor and the channel EQ. Pretty much the same settings. Attack is now really slow and very fast release. And let's listen to that. And without. So as you can see, not really too much compression at all, just -3 to -4. And on the EQ side, I filtered here now everything below 70 Hertz or 75 Hertz. I also added a little bit of 10 kilohertz because on this particular snare top microphone there's also a lot of bleed of the hi-hat and also of the cymbals. And it isn't, for example, in the kick drum mic, so I have to deal with that, and I have to push it in the snare microphone a little bit. I also added a little bit of 3K just for the snare to make it a little bit more pop. I reduced around 200 Hertz, I think -2.5, so very tiny increment here. And to get a little bit rid of the kick drum again. And I boosted a little bit of 400 Hertz because here starts the, or here is the very low frequencies of the snare, and to get a little bit more body of the snare and to make it a little bit fatter. So let's listen to that without and then with. With. So what you probably can hear is this kind of very low-end rumble that I tried to filter out, but you can't really get away with it because the drums were recorded live and there was also a band playing. So you can hear a little bit of the bass bleed or the bass amp bleed in it. No big deal. It's just a typical process when you record live drums with a band. So now to the magical fake drum room. And what I did here is I made a new track and I called it the fake drum room. And I copied the snare top track to this new track because on the kick drum there is less information of the whole drum kit, and so I had to take the snare track for that. And what I have here are a couple of plugins, again a compressor and a channel EQ, and a compressor is pretty much slamming it, so I really want to over compress it with when I have a room mic. I filtered out also everything below 200 Hertz. Gets pretty nasty when you add reverb to it. And that's about it. So let's listen to that. To disengage the other ones. And solo the fake drum room. So as you can hear, it's pretty slammy. Let's disengage the compressor. Okay, but not lively at all. So I also added a little bit of drive, a little bit of distortion. So it kind of makes it pretty lo-fi. but works really great with a little bit of reverb. And here I work with the preset of the reverb, which is the Studio A. There's also another preset for Studio B, which is a pretty a smaller room, but I really like the sound of the Studio A. And I decreased a little bit of reverb here, a little bit of early reflections, and also you have to play around with the wet and dry knob. And I think I also used it a little bit the time adjustments. So let's listen now without and then with. And here's the room. It may sound a little bit too much at the beginning, but always remember we kind of sneak it in afterwards to the other tracks, so you really want to have it a little bit too much at the beginning, and you can always dial it back. And for a kind of a fake stereo track, when you have just a mono signal from the snare drum, you can try and use kind of a ATD plugin, which is artificial double tracking, where you take the original signal and it gets delayed a little bit on left or right side, depending where you pan it. And I have here a free plugin, which is called the ATD from Vacuum Sound, and it works pretty good. I reduced the delay around to 20 milliseconds and have the ADT level all the way up. So let's listen to that without and then with. So it makes it really kind of stereo. As if you have left and right microphones over the drum kit or in the room. So let's listen now to all the tracks together and also with the fake drum. Now let's take away the fake drum. And with. So it kind of simulates that the whole drum kit was tracked in a bigger room, or there were also other microphones used in the recording process. You really have to try it out yourself and see how it works in a mix, and always play around with the reverb and the ADT settings when you use this particular method. Alright, so last but not least, I also added a little bit of EQ on the drum bus itself on the console. So let me show you what I did here. So as you can see, here is 12 kHz. I added a little bit of that, and I also boosted a little bit of 50 plus 9 dB, somewhere around that. So let's listen to that. And with. Without. So as you can hear, it really fattens up the track and it really boosts the low end a little bit more and also the top end. And now let's listen to the whole drum kit without any processing and then with all the other processing, including the fake drum room. So let's disengage all the plugins. So here are the drums without any processing again. Alright, now let me engage everything again. Also the fake drum room and the channels on the console. Alright, so sounds pretty decent to me. And now let's head over to the second example. I have now here a kick drum and drum overheads, so no snare microphone. And everything is passed again to the drum bus, and I have pretty much the same plugins like in the example 1, but so the Kramer tape is the same. And here I have now the second console simulation, which is, I believe, an EMI console. And again, we have just a little bit of drive, and let's listen to that without and with. So as you can immediately hear, there's a lot of low information here in the kick drum, and even though there is no snare microphone, you can hear it pretty good in the drum overheads. So now let's work with the kick first, and I have here now a different EQ, which is the Shaps EQ, and I dialed in here the preamp simulation pretty high, and also the input fader, where it kind of gets when you link it to the output fader, like that, you kind of get a transformer simulation. And I reduced a little bit of the highs in the kick drum, just to get rid of the hi-hat a little bit, and also of the snare top end. I boosted a little bit of 3K, and also boosted here 35 Hertz, so pretty low. But if you have good monitors, you will hear it immediately, and no filters. So let's engage that. Now that's a kick drum, and I also added a compressor, and I used here the free compressor from Klanghelm. It's a pretty decent compressor, and what I liked here on this particular track is that with the auto setting on the time constants, it kinda softens the transients from the kick drum a little bit, and it makes it a little bit more pleasing. So let's listen to that. With. Alright, and a little bit saturation, and this time I used not the soft tube saturation knob. I used the plugin Mix Analoger, which is a great plugin. You can simulate a tube and tape, and you also can have a mixture of both, but I used here just the tape sim. Reduced a little bit of the lows and a little bit more of the highs, and just a tiny amount of drive. So let's listen to that. So you can overdo it. Nice. And that's about everything I did to the kick drum. It sounds pretty good already, I think. And now let's head to the overheads. listen to the overheads without the EQ, and it did pretty much the same thing here. I added a little bit of preamp saturation, also transformers saturation of the input side, reduced a little bit of the highs, again added a little bit of 3 kilohertz, and here I have a filtered out everything below 80 hertz. So let's listen to that. So it doesn't do too much, just a little bit that the snare comes out a little bit more, and that's about it. And on the compressor, or for compression, I used the Untitled 670 with a pretty fast time constant here, with a pretty fast release, and I think it doesn't do too much compression, so let's listen to that. Yeah, so it just evens out a little bit of the peaks here. And I wanted to have it a little bit more wider, and I use here the S1 imager from Waves. I just dialed in. Normally you have it here on 1.0 and I have it to 1.4. You can use a little bit more, but you have to be really careful with widening stereo widerness. They can really mess up your phase pretty quickly. So let's listen to that. So that would be way too much. Alright, so with headphones you hear it immediately, that it widens a little bit the track. Now let's listen to the drums now processed. And now without the plug-ins. Sounds a little bit dull and a little bit boring. Let's bring again the plug-ins in. So it really depends on the mix later when you want to have that much kick drum in it. Kind of sounds a little bit like an old school recording of the 60s or 70s, maybe with not that dry but with a little bit more room, and kind of dig that sound. And just for the record, here on the mix down where I monitor, I have also the NLS channel engaged for the whole mixing here. I have a little bit of bus compression with the SSL comp. I have a EQ here, the Puig tag, with a little bit of 12K boost, and a saturation plug-in, the J37 from Waves. And that's pretty much all I did to the 2 drum examples. Alright, so that's about it. I hope that you learned something new, or that I was able to show you what you can do just with those 2 tracks on the drum kit. And there are also some videos on YouTube where they show you how to mix or record a drum kit with a single microphone. Back in the 60s, 50s, this was a normal process. They just used one or just overhead microphones for the whole drum kit. It works pretty well. You get a pretty interesting sound. It may not be suited, or it may not be the best option for a modern recording like a rock mix or something like that, but on a kind of a Motown or a folk song it can work pretty well. And so that's it. Please subscribe and let me know what you think in the comments below, and see you in a next video.